former Congresswoman Shelley Berkley,
I'm concerned and interested in what this community is going to look like when my grandchildren are teenagers.
and current City Councilwoman Victoria Seaman.
One of my biggest responsibilities, I feel, as a city councilwoman is to have these town halls because public safety is the most important issue.
Face off to see who will lead Las Vegas into the future.
I think the city needs new vision.
I think I have a pretty good feel for what can be accomplished.
And answer questions about the issues their city is facing every day, live from the Channel 8 studios.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight for our Las Vegas mayoral debate. We are at the KLAS studios, and I am news anchor Denise Valdez. We're joined tonight by Politics Now host John Langeler, along with education reporter Joshua Peguero.
And this evening we are joined by the two candidates for mayor in the city of Las Vegas, former Nevada Congresswoman Shelley Berkley and Las Vegas City Councilwoman Victoria Seaman. Thank you both for joining us this evening. So let's talk about the rules for the debate tonight. Each candidate gets 60 seconds to answer a question. There will be 30 seconds if there is a follow-up or a rebuttal for the questions. And if clarification is needed, there are an additional 15 seconds. We'll remind you at home and, of course, the candidates as well of those times all throughout the evening. A bell will also ring when time is up. Sounds exactly like that. So let's get started. And we will begin with what seems to be the most contentious topic in this race so far, the Badlands Golf Course. As you know, for years, the city has been in litigation with the landowner there over developing the site. The developer wants to turn that land into homes in the West Valley. Back in August, the Las Vegas city attorney warned that the case could cost Las Vegas taxpayers as much as $650 million.
We all know what's at risk with this type of number for the city. Public projects, public programs are at stake. Union, private sector, public sector job opportunities are at stake. And quality of life is at stake.
Mrs. Berkley, you have 1 minute. You live in the Queens Ridge neighborhood right next to Badlands, and you support settling this case. How does the city make the best of this bad situation?
Well, it is imperative, and on day one, what I will do is start working on a solution to the Badlands debacle. First, sit down with the city council people. What will it take each one to get to yes? As you know, you need 4 votes on the city council to get anything. Right now, there's been 1 vote, and she hasn't been able to bring anybody else on board with her. How do we get to 4? Then I sit down with the city attorney, attorney to attorney. Where are we? What are we doing? What are our prospects? Let's get this done. And then you contact the developer, sit down with the developer and see what it will take to get him to yes, and make it as easy as possible to make the developer whole while we protect the interests of the taxpayers of the city of Las Vegas. Must get this done. I'm doing it on day one.
Mrs. Berkley, thank you. Mrs. Seaman, you have 1 minute. As we know, you're on the city council right now. You voted several times for the city to keep fighting the lawsuit, but then in our previous debate, as you pointed out, you changed your position in 2022 when it became clear a deal was not imminent, and there's still no deal even now. So again, how does the city make the best of this bad situation?
Well, everybody's on board to settle now that we lost. And so now we have to navigate in how we're going to try to settle this, which we have been. You have to understand, we've gone through 3 city managers and 3 city attorneys, and there were some that were urging the council to continue this fight. I've been in public, private briefings where the city attorneys were urging the council to continue this because there was no way to lose. I was the only one that was urging them to settle. I inherited this. It started 4 years before I got on the council. And it was 2021, I believe, when I stopped funding it, because I only funded the outside attorneys and the appeals because they were going to try to settle it. When I saw that wasn't happening, I was very vocal about it, and I am been steadfast since then and made sure that I urged my council. But now everybody's on board.
Mrs. Seaman, thank you very much. I would like to ask a follow-up question, if I can, starting with Mrs. Berkley. 30 seconds to respond. So let's assume there is a settlement, whether it's on day 1 or day 101 for whoever wins this contest. There's a lot of money here. What gets cut first?
I don't think we should start talking about cuts until we know the actual number and what it is that the developer is willing to do. Can we spread out the payments over X number of years? What about the property? Who gets the property? Will the developer develop it if he has the ability to do so? So there's a lot of wiggle room to make sure we do this and do this right, and again, protect the taxpayers of the city of Las Vegas and ensure that the developer is made whole.
Just to clarify 15 seconds if possible here, I acknowledge that until you know the exact amount, you can't say exactly what to cut, but you guys have been debating this for a long, long time. Can you at least assure the public that there are ways to address this without significantly affecting city services?
It is going to be a hit to city services, but we have to do everything we can to protect the people that call the city of Las Vegas home and not compromise public service, public safety, and the essential services that people expect from their local government.
Mrs. Berkley, thank you. Mrs. Seaman, 30 seconds to respond. Again, assuming that there is a settlement here, what gets cut first?
Well, first of all, we would end up selling the land. It's worth a lot of money now, and we are going to start selling some land. There is some of our land that we are in lease with the BLM, but there's plenty of other land that we can try to sell. We've kind of slowed down and cut some CIP projects, but we will never sacrifice public safety or first responders. But we will freeze positions that are vacant that are, as we've seen, we're surviving just fine without those vacant positions.
That's not exactly accurate.
It's very accurate.
I think I'll leave it there. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Joshua, over to you.
All right, we're going to move on to the lack of affordable housing. It's a big problem in Southern Nevada, with Clark County's housing administrator saying we're about 80,000 affordable homes short for folks below the median income. Mrs. Seaman, 1 minute to answer. You have said you want to ensure builders and developers have the tools and incentives they need. What are they?
Well, tax increment financing, opportunity zones. There are so many things that we can do with builders to encourage them to do mixed-use projects. Right now, we're going to the state legislature with one of our bills to make sure that it's not just 60% AMI, which is average median income, but up to 80% AMI on these mixed-use projects. We are not leaving any money on the table for grants. We just got a $50 million grant for Marble Manor. We were 1 out of 7 cities. I'm very excited about that, to get that grant. And we're going to turn that 200-unit project into a 600-unit project of mixed use. It'll be 60 AMI, 80 AMI, and it'll also be subsidized. We have 3 other projects besides that in the works. We just broke ground with Ovation on a senior affordable housing project in Ward 6, and that will be about 38 tiny houses. It's kind of a pilot project, and about 216 units.
Mrs. Berkley, you have 1 minute as well. Can you tell us what incentives you support giving builders and developers?
Well, let's talk about what the City Council has already done that I applaud. First, there was an ordinance passed and sponsored by Brian Knutson that increased the density, lowered the parking requirements, and made it easier to apply for permits if you are building affordable homes. Very important thing that was done. Number 2, I support what Joe Lombardo and the congressional delegation has done in requesting BLM land be transferred to the city so we can build on it. I have experience with that because we had BLM land that was transferred to the VA, and that's where the VA hospital now sits, so I could help with that process. And then finally, these institutional investors that are coming in and buying up apartment buildings and single-family houses and jacking up the price. They've got no involvement. They don't belong here. They don't live here, and they're taking terrible advantage of our citizens.
All right, Denise?
Well, in some cases, people end up on the streets simply because they can't afford to live anywhere else. And getting people into permanent housing certainly has been very tough. Just in last year, in 2023, the city says 814 people were placed in permanent housing. However, it turns out 580 of those were actually given a bus ticket to live with family members somewhere else through the Ticket to Home program. So, Mrs. Berkley, you have 1 minute to respond here. Beyond the resources we all know in the Corridor of Hope, name one new policy that you would like to see to help find homeless people a permanent home.
This is a very serious problem in our community, not only in the city of Las Vegas, but throughout the Las Vegas Valley. What we have to do, and this is my goal, I want to get people off the streets. Human beings should not be living on the streets. It's a humanitarian issue. Get them off the streets. That's mental health therapy, addiction therapy, opioid addiction and alcohol addiction therapy, and job training, and make sure that you get them self-sustaining so they can take care of themselves. So that is very important. We're working with a group of people that just purchased or leased land across the street from the VA hospital, 800 beds for homeless veterans that provides wraparound services. But you have a serious problem when people that are living on the streets rather stay there than go to the courtyard. We have spent a fortune on helping people get off the streets. It's not working.
We're going to talk more about that in a minute. Mrs. Seaman, you have 1 minute to answer here. So beyond those resources inside the Corridor of Hope, is there one new policy that you would like to see help homeless people find a permanent place to live?
Yeah, I had a meeting today with a group called Liberty Wellness that's right now contracting with the county. And the interesting thing is, this is for people who come on hard times. This isn't for addiction, because it's very hard to get people off the streets with addiction. I've gone out into the tunnels. It's a whole different situation that we're already contracting with people. But what Liberty Wellness was explained to me, they're proactive. They have transitional housing all over the county. And I asked him if he had it in the city. I would love to bring something like this. So I had a long meeting with him, and we talked about how many people he got into transitional housing just in a year. And it was 3,000 people that fell on hard times that could have been on the street. So we have programs like this that we can bring to the city. And that's the things that I'm doing. I'm looking for innovative solutions. And this is why I do my job full time, because I love meeting with people and hearing actual data that works.
John?
Let's turn now to, as Mrs. Berkley mentioned, the city's public camping ban. You were sort of referencing this. Right now, the council is considering an expansion to the program, which would include a mandatory minimum jail sentence of 10 days if a person is convicted more than twice in a year. And then a judge who's involved could also order a person into rehabilitation programs if they're found on the street. So this is under discussion right now with City Council. Mrs. Seaman, obviously you're on the council. You have 1 minute to respond. Would you vote on expanding this program, and why?
The camping ban?
The camping ban,
We
yes.
just did.
Okay, well, let's explore why, because this has been a contentious discussion. Obviously, it's been sort of backed by the Supreme Court. Obviously, it's contested by the ACLU and others. Tell me why you think that's a good method of dealing with the homelessness issue, while still maybe trying to find some compassion and help.
I'll tell you why, because my opponent has said in past debates that we have not helped one person. So I just got the stats today on, we have added to the corridor the Nevada Health Center that we are working with. And they have brought already 3,800 people into services. And we have no ability to help those people unless we have those more teams to go out with the camping ban. But that's not the whole reason we did it. We had businesses in downtown that were ready to close down because people were camping. We don't want to end up like our neighboring cities. The purpose is not to put them in jail. The purpose is to give them that opportunity to get services over at the corridor. We are now adding to the Nevada Health Center, not just physical, but mental health. But they are a great reference to get people into services. And another one is Shine a Light, who I went out in the tunnels with, who have brought in last year 400 people into services. We are doing great things out there.
Mrs. Berkley, let's talk more about this public camping ban. Obviously, it's under discussion at City Council. Your position on expanding the public camping ban at city level?
I would tweak it insofar as I don't think homelessness should be criminalized. I think it is a humanitarian issue to get these people off the streets and self-sustaining. That would be my goal. Since my opponent has been in the city, on the city council, the number of homeless people in Las Vegas has doubled. That is not something I would be particularly proud of. And again, we have spent a fortune on the courtyard, and yet when the Moore team tries to encourage people to get off the street and go and get services that they think that exist at the courtyard, they don't want to go. And the reason for that is the courtyard has such a negative connotation. Even the homeless don't want to go there. So there are things we must do. This is a humanitarian issue. It's an economic issue. People's life savings are in their businesses, and because the homeless are camping out, their customers can't get into their businesses. That's not right. It's bad for the city of Las Vegas.
Mrs. Berkley, thank you very much.
I'd like to respond to that if I could.
How would you like to expand on that?
Yes, thank you. So I'd like to bring up that between 2005 and 2008, one of our biggest problems here with the homelessness is addiction. And we've had open borders all the way back from when you were in Congress. And you voted against extra border security back then. You voted against a border wall, and you also voted for sanctuary cities across this country.
You are absolutely mistaken. I am opposed to sanctuary.
First of all, you're interrupting my time.
Oh,
HR 6095, fact check, HR 418, and HR 5719. And I'm happy to post this on my website because we are dealing with addiction in this city, and it is sad. We are losing people daily from drugs coming over from our southern border.
Well, Mrs. Seaman, thank you. 30 seconds to respond, Mrs. Berkley.
All right. Well, I'm not sure this has anything to do with being mayor of Las Vegas, but as long as my opponent brought it up, the reality is I have been vocally opposed to sanctuary cities. I voted actually to build the wall when I was in Congress, and I find that a misrepresentation of my positions. The reality is we get people off the streets and self-sustaining. The problem is getting worse, even though we're putting huge resources into the courtyard and other ways of taking care of our homeless people.
Denise.
All right, let's talk about small businesses. They have been stripped of copper. Dozens of Las Vegas streetlights have been stripped of copper, knocking out the power. And this really costs not only people, but also taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars. Here is a recent target of copper theft. He's the owner of Broadway Pizza.
It's hard enough to be in business these days. The rising costs, our food costs, out of control. Rent is up. Everything across the board, insurance, utilities, you name it. And then you got to deal with stuff like this.
So we hear it all the time, right? The city has passed, though, some new tougher laws on scrap yards who are buying the copper and monitoring who is actually selling it. So Mrs. Berkley, you go first on this one. You have 1 minute to respond. What could the city of Las Vegas do to help these small businesses that have been hurt by these copper thefts?
Well, obviously we have to beef up law enforcement. We have a remarkable metro. I'm very proud. I was just at the Best of the Badge celebration on Saturday night. Our Metro officers do a remarkable job. They may need more resources. They may need more personnel. Since the city and the county fund the budget of Metro, it is imperative that we work closely with the sheriff and do everything we can to ensure that we meet his budgetary needs so that his men and women that are serving us every day have the resources they need and the manpower they need in order to not only take care of this problem, but the other challenges we have in a growing city.
So nothing specifically the city could earmark, maybe a task force or something to help small businesses that they're victimized?
Of course, there's a number of things that can be done, but in the end, you don't want vigilantes roaming the streets. You want law enforcement to do the job they're tasked with doing. This is it, and I know they can't be all over the place all the time, but we do the best we can to ensure that our small businesses are safe, they're not broken into, that homeless people aren't impeding the ability of of customers to get into the store. We're small business people too. I know what a challenge it is to run a restaurant.
So, Mrs. Seaman, you have 1 minute to respond here. This is in regards to copper theft. What could the city of Las Vegas do to help these small businesses who've been hit?
Well, we have done that. We've strengthened the ordinances for accountability, and I'm so glad that we did that. And we worked with the recycling to make sure there was a balance. But I know the state legislature is also working on that, because when it was first brought to me, I was going to sponsor it. But we did some tweaks to allow add more accountability. But we do have a task force. I'm very proud of the work our director, or our Chief Potts, is doing, Chief of Public Safety, and he has put together a task force that goes around to all the businesses in downtown to have a presence there to make sure that they're trying to deal with the crime down there. I can also say that we opened the substation with Metro, our marshals and Metro, on Fremont Street, which is also deterring crime, and it's like the first in the nation. So we are on it, and I think we're doing a fabulous job.
All right, ladies, so that brings us to a bigger issue of public safety. Both of you have said that public safety is one of your most important issues. The most recent statistics from Metro Police say that homicides are down 22% this year. Robberies are down 17%. Mrs. Seaman, despite those decreases, your ads say that crime is a major problem. So you have 1 minute to respond here. Why do you think crime is rising then in the city?
It is in certain crimes, like rape is up 5%. I mean, it could be any of our family members. That's not acceptable. I just turned on the news and saw that a man was shot by Metro because he was trying to stab them. That kind of crime is unacceptable. We had 80 homicides from January to October, so it's down. How do you explain that to family members if it's their family? So my goal is to continue to work with Metro, give them the tools they need, and I have, to make sure that we are one of the safest cities in the union. Look, we have 42 million tourists coming every year. We can't afford even 80 homicides from January until now, and I will do everything I can. And I've been endorsed by all the police unions in the state of Nevada, and I'm very proud of that. And the reason I am, it's because of the hard work that I've done with them. They're amazing. They're the best in the nation.
Mrs. Berkley, again, as a reminder, you've got 1 minute to respond here. Do you think crime is rising in our city?
No, crime is not rising. The crime that's rising is the stealing of cars. Everything else is down. What we should be doing is celebrating Metro's success. How do you talk about very close to law enforcement, but this is bad and that's bad, and there's all sorts of crime going on in the city of Las Vegas? This is the most remarkable city on the planet. There is nothing like it. It is not only the best tourist destination on the planet, it's time that we start moving forward and make it the best place to live on the planet, and that's what my goal is as mayor of Las Vegas. We don't need to insult and denigrate our law enforcement officers. They put their lives on the line every day for us. Let's thank them and let's celebrate their success, because their success is our success.
So on this issue, you're clearly differ. I'll give you 15 seconds just to clarify, Mrs. Seaman.
Yes. First of all, that's very insulting, because my father and my husband, lifelong law enforcement. Nobody's denigrating police. What I'm saying
You're saying that crime is rampant in Las Vegas.
It's my turn. Legislators are a problem. There's no accountability. Go to a CVS, go to a Walgreens. Everything is locked up. That doesn't tell me shoplifting crime is going down. Our legislators need to hold criminals accountable. Nothing to do with our police. We have the best police force in the nation. Our homicide department has a 93 or 94% solvability rate. So,
Mrs. Seaman, thank you. That's your time. Mrs. Berkley, do you want to give you 15 seconds here just to button up this issue?
I promise I won't interrupt you.
You can if you like.
No.
You can if you like.
No.
I think I have a wonderful working relationship with Kevin McMahill, our sheriff. I know that our relationship will continue to grow as we work together, and the city and county work to ensure that law enforcement has the resources it needs to keep all of us safe. But this is a wonderful community with a wonderful Metropolitan Police Department, and I'm grateful to them every single day.
Joshua?
All right, on to education. The Clark County School District, the nation's 5th largest school system, and its board are currently under heavy scrutiny by state leaders due to several issues in just the last month. There's a budget shortfall that led to the firing of its CFO. A trustee resigned after our reporting revealed she was living out of state. And CCSD postponed the hiring of a superintendent over concerns of instability on the board. Mrs. Berkley, you will have 1 minute. As the mayor of Las Vegas, what are some immediate solutions you'd offer to stabilize the board and district?
Well, let us be very clear on this. The mayor of Las Vegas has many responsibilities, but the Clark County School District is not one of them. But what you do as mayor of Las Vegas is you have a bully pulpit. I went through the Clark County School District. The education I received is wonderful for the life I'm leading. It's obsolete for the life my grandchildren will be leading. I was honored with having a school named after me, Shelley Berkley Elementary School. I spend a lot of time in various schools, including the one named after me. What we need to do is ensure that our students are getting the best possible education. It's not only important for the children, it's important for economic growth and diversity, because companies do not want to relocate to a community, to a city that doesn't have an outstanding education system. That's my goal, but
15 seconds to clarify. If you're going to offer one immediate solution to help stabilize the board and the district, what would it be?
Well, again, it would not be within the purview of the mayor. You need to know your job, and you need to do that well. But I have been, as I said, a product of the Clark County School District. I'm very involved in it. I like the idea that the city created a charter school where disadvantaged children can go. We should do after-school programs, summer school programs, anything we can to improve the quality of education and give our kids a good head start.
Thank you. Mrs. Seaman, you also have 1 minute. As the mayor of Las Vegas, what are some immediate solutions you'd offer to stabilize the board and district?
Well, I want to thank you for liking what we're doing, because we have been doing it. During COVID, our Strong Start Academy stayed open. And with that ARPA money, we opened our first charter school downtown, bilingual, the only bilingual school in the state, and it's thriving within the underserved area. Since then, the legislature, through AB 400, gave us the purview to now support charter schools in our municipalities. And Henderson has already signed on, and I believe North Las Vegas. And I can tell you this, as mayor, we're going to sign on and we're going to open the doors. And I can say that AB 75 gave us a representative, Adam Johnson, and he's doing a wonderful job, and we just got briefed today. And he was explaining a lot of what the budget is there could be formulas, but there is $20 million missing, but it is a $4 million. But I've always said that Clark County is way too big. When I was in the legislature, I supported a bill to break up the district. It passed, and then it went through interim committee, and it didn't pass. So I'm in favor of breaking it down.
So 15 seconds to clarify, Mrs. Seaman, are you saying you would support breaking up the school district as an immediate solution to stabilize it?
I think that it's a good idea to look at that again, because you have areas that have different needs than other areas. And it's really important, because we are failing in education. All these things that we're doing at the city, we're thinking outside the box. And we're doing that because we're 50th out of 50th or 49. There's an argument, are we 49th or 50th? It doesn't matter. We have the ability to do something to give every child an equal opportunity of an education.
All right, a follow-up for you both, 30 seconds each. Mrs. Berkley, what grade would you give CCSD?
Right now, a C-. It is not educating our students in a way that I believe they should be educated for the future. However, let us recall that we fund our education system 49th in the United States. Generally speaking, you get what you pay for. And I am not convinced that breaking up the school district is going to do a thing. How is that going to improve educational outcomes for our students? How is that going to save us money? It's going to cost more money the more school districts we have. So I'm not sold on that idea yet.
Mrs. Seaman, 30 seconds as
Yeah,
well. What grade would you give CCSD?
If we're 49th or 50th, it doesn't matter. That's an F.
Thank you. John?
All right, let's go back to land issues if we could. Back in July, the city of Las Vegas and the council approved plans for a large Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints temple up in the Northwest Valley near Lone Mountain. The project faced opposition from some landowners nearby, some homeowners who say it is too big for the neighborhood, and now legal action has been taken against the council for the vote. There you can see the map there outlining where the temple project would be and where it is up in the Northwest Valley. Mrs. Seaman, you have 1 minute to respond. You voted in favor of this temple project. Why did you support the proposal?
Well, before I vote on any bill, like in the legislature, I do my due diligence. And I did my due diligence on the legalities, on the land use, and I don't think churches have been bad for our communities. I think they're good. And it was harmonious and compatible, and I voted for it, and I stand by that vote.
Okay. Mrs. Berkley, I ask you the same question. You have 1 minute to respond. What is your position on this temple project?
I've done a number of meetings with the neighbors in that area, and I think Victoria will agree. They're very angry that the church was located there. Too tall, to this, to that. But they kept, with the people that I met with, they seemed to think that the next mayor could magically overturn the vote. And I explained to them that now this is in the courts. The courts will decide, but it was a unanimous vote, and that cannot be overturned.
Mrs. Berkley, thank you. There is a follow-up question to this, obviously, since the vote has already taken place. And let's show the map once again, if we can here. And one of the reasons for this ongoing dispute, the Northwest Valley has patches of city and county land up in the Northwest Valley that are kind of isolated from each other. You are, I'm sure, familiar with what we call county islands. So, Mrs. Seaman, you have 30 seconds. Would you support annexing those county lands into the city? And if so, how would you get the county to go along with that?
Well, I think some of that vote is coming up because I believe it was 10 years ago that it was decided that anytime we put utilities and services into those county islands, that they were supposed to be annexed into the city. And they voted 10 years ago to not do that. And it's going to be coming up again. And I've asked about it since the time I got elected. You know, we are the ones doing the services. How is that going to work? So it has to be, we have to sit down and see what the cost is. Is it worth it to bring those county islands into the city now after 10 years? But we'll have those deep discussions, and we'll see if it's going to happen. 15
seconds, though. You think Clark County is going to go along with that? Back in 2018, there were, I think, what, 900 acres, and that went nowhere.
Well, it's a vote that the city will take at that point.
Okay, well,
okay.
I'll move on to Mrs. Berkley here. Would you support this kind of annexation of county lands into the city, and how would you get the county to go along?
One of the things that I think I bring to the table and I would bring to being mayor of Las Vegas is being able to work with all of the jurisdictions across the valley and state government and our congressional delegation. I think it is imperative for us to develop a closer working relationship with the city of North Las Vegas, the city of Henderson, and certainly the county. And I think that I have the ability to do that more than anybody else, and I intend to do that so we're all working together for the common good of everybody that lives in Southern Nevada.
Mrs. Berkley. Joshua.
We're going to move on to traffic. Getting around is a challenge. Streets are crowded. In the last decade, the RTC says $2.5 billion has been spent on Clark County roads alone. Mrs. Berkley, you have 1 minute. How would you improve traffic in the city?
That is a good question. Look, We need improved transportation options. When I was in Congress, I sat on the Transportation Committee, and we brought in millions and millions of dollars to improve the roads. We are still doing that. As you know, the Congress passed an infrastructure bill that was very robust, had billions of dollars in it. So much of what you're seeing is the use of that money. It is difficult to get around. There is no doubt about it. I wish I invested in orange cones years ago, because I would be a wealthy woman right now. But we need to improve our transportation system and give people options so they can get out of their cars and get to work without with the ease that other communities throughout the United States have. So I'm a big proponent of transportation options for the people that live in all of Southern Nevada, which means working with all the other jurisdictions.
Mrs. Seaman, you also have 1 minute. How would you improve traffic in the city?
Well, we're a growing city, and we're going to have some growing pains. But I like what the Uber tunnels, what they've done with these Uber tunnels, and I just hope we can help them somehow get it throughout the city. That would be amazing. I think it's going to be a game changer with Brightline when we have all these people coming over from California and the traffic is crazy during the weekend. I think with that Brightline, people will then be, maybe coming in through there and then using Ubers. We do need to work, we're working on bus routes right now. We had a meeting with RTC and they are working on them, but I think we have to, again, think outside the box, and I like what they're doing with the Uber tunnels. If we can put it underground, that would be completely, we've already done it, but if we could do that further, I can only imagine going from Summerlin to the airport in an Uber tunnel.
This is a follow-up question. I didn't hear any of you two bring this up, but 30 seconds each. If the legislature allows the city to have red light cameras, would you support using them, Mrs. Berkley?
Yes.
All right, Mrs. Seaman, the same question to you. 30 seconds. If the legislature allows the city to, to have red light cameras, would you support using them?
Well, like all legislation, I know we're bringing that to the legislature. I like to see what the bill entails before I would support it or not. I mean, they're bringing it forth, but I haven't read the language on the bill. But I know that it could help, but there are other issues. I just have to see all the details.
Denise?
All right, so let's move on to animal welfare. It cost the city of Las Vegas alone nearly $4 million a year to run the animal shelter. The contract expires next year. New bids are being accepted right now by the city. So, Mrs. Seaman, you'll be first on this one with 1 minute to respond. Beyond more oversight, tell us one specific thing you want changed in this next contract.
Besides oversight, accountability, oversight, there's a myriad of things that I would like to see changed in the way that our animals are taken care of. Mainly it's management. We've had mismanagement for decades. But it's interesting that you brought that up, because I talked to the city manager about that today, and I said I'd really like to be involved and know exactly what's going to be in those contracts. But we do have a committee, also an oversight committee, which I think is very important. I mean, imagine 3 jurisdictions, and none of us had any control over the Animal Foundation, and we lost over 26,000 animals because of I believe a lot of it is because of mismanagement. So I'm grateful. It took me 2 years to get everybody on board, but I got all the jurisdictions on board, and we were able to make these much needed changes. So thank you.
Mrs. Berkley, you have 1 minute to respond to your beyond just more oversight. Tell us one specific thing that you would like changed in the next contract.
Yes, and I think once we get the new contract done and it's approved and there's actually enough money to take care of these poor animals that are being abandoned on the streets, abandoned in the desert, and they're dropped off at the Animal Foundation. So they've got their hands full. I don't know whether it's management or not, or lack of resources, but one thing I think we should insist on, if the city is helping to pay for the Animal Foundation, we need a representative of the city on the foundation board, so we get firsthand information and knowledge of what is happening there, what needs to be done, what additional resources they may need, and make sure that we take care of our four-legged friends. They certainly take care of us.
All right, ladies, this is the point where we are going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with more questions for our candidates right after this.
Welcome back to our mayoral debate for the city of Las Vegas. We're joined by both candidates. We have Shelley Berkley here and Victoria Seaman. Let's get right back into the topics of discussion. Mental health is a nationwide crisis. The city's strategic plan lists mental health resources as one of its biggest challenges. In fact, the main provider of mental health care in the city of Las Vegas is the city's own jail and the Clark County Detention Center downtown. Mrs. Seaman, you have 1 minute to respond. If you're elected as mayor, what would you do to improve the city's mental health services?
Well, I'm going to continue doing what we're doing, and we just got Nevada Health Services right there within our corridor to be certified for Medicaid. So that's going to help tremendously with mental health. When we got the building, what we did was we built a second floor for mental health, and that's going to be opening up soon. Right now they're doing physical health and they're referring them out. But I'll continue that, and I'm really excited about what Governor Lombardo has done, because he's going to take a lot off our shoulders, because homelessness doesn't have boundaries, and the city's been dealing with it with the shelter and the corridor, and the $26 million we put into the medical part of our corridor. And so with him replicating what we did, but on a much bigger level, I think it's going to be wonderful, because there's going to be mental health, transitional housing, and I'm looking forward to working with him on that.
Mrs. Berkley, 1 minute to respond once again. If you're elected, what would you do to try and improve mental health services in the city?
I don't think anybody should be proud of the condition of our mental health services in the city and throughout southern Nevada. We don't do it well, and we have to. Now, I'm very good friends with the woman that runs the rescue mission, Heather Angle. About a year ago, I sat down with her. I said, Heather, if I could wave a magic wand, what can I do to help you? First thing she said without hesitating, we need a mental health facility in the city of Las Vegas. Most of the people she sees at the rescue mission, at Catholic Charities, people living on the streets, they have mental health challenges. But not only do we need a facility, we need to be able to staff it, and therein lies the challenge. And possibly we could get funding from the legislature and work with the schools like Touro University or UNLV's medical school, make this part of the curriculum, because it's desperately needed.
I'd like to ask a follow-up question to both of you, but first for Mrs. Seaman, again, something else to improve the city's mental health care services. You mentioned the projects that are already underway. What else beyond that can the city do besides just putting more money into it?
Well, it's not putting more money into it. The Nevada Health Center now will have a second floor to treat the mental health. So you don't have to wave your magic wand, because we have it. We're getting it.
Well, it's not working.
We put a lot of money into it. And again, you know, this is a Southern Nevada problem, and the city has, you know, taken those steps to do a shelter. There's no other shelter right now that is municipality or state funded. So that, you know, there's a lot of nonprofits, but the city took the first steps. The city took the first step with our recuperative care center. I mean, the city is constantly making sure that we're doing what we can.
Just a quick point of clarification for Mrs. Berkley as well. 30 seconds to respond here. You're saying it's not working. I heard you say it in the microphone there. So what is your definition of working?
That people are getting the mental health therapy that they desperately need. And look, I applaud and thank everybody working in the homeless sector. They're doing God's work as far as I'm concerned, but we are not doing enough, and we're not doing it successfully enough to get people off the streets and self-sustaining. Giving somebody a bus ticket to go someplace else is not housing them. That is a lie, and we need to do better. It's important not only for the homeless, but for our businesses, our economy, our tourists. We need to work on this and get it done now.
Berkley, thank you very much.
As mentioned earlier, You know, I've been out in the tunnels, I've been out with the community, and there are people that we meet that we offer those services to. We offer them to come with us. We can get them food, we can take them to Catholic Charities, we can bring them to shelter, and they simply tell us we want to go back to our family. And that's what we do. And I think that's great. We need to be uniting people with their families.
Thank you, Mrs. Seaman.
But that's not housing, that's transportation.
Denise.
All right, the second year of the Formula One Grand Prix is going to be here next month before we even know it. The race generated $77 million in tax revenue for Clark County, but the event certainly came with a lot of criticism, now even lawsuits. So you have 1 minute here to respond. Mrs. Berkley, you'll go first on this one. What is really the best way for the city, though, to benefit from F1?
There are a lot of things that I think we can be doing as a city. One of them is to develop our arts district. Right now, we're going to have a new art museum, the Smith Center. I know that the Nevada School of the Arts has a very ambitious program of a Lincoln Center in Las Vegas. I want to attract people that are staying on the Strip, that one night, they come down to Las Vegas, downtown Las Vegas, and enjoy our incredible restaurants, our art, our performances. And in order to do that, and that's why two things are so important: making sure we have enough money to do that, and that has to do with the Badlands, and number two, ensuring that we get the homeless off the streets and self-sustaining. No one wants to go where they are going to be accosted by homeless people or other people that are intimidating them. For the sake of our city and our economic future, we need to do better.
Mrs. Seaman, so you have 1 minute here. What is the best way for the city to benefit from F1? It's such a lucrative event.
Well, and we have a great PR team that's working with the businesses downtown to see how we can do different events with them and PR to get those people downtown. And that's happening right now because F1 is coming up very soon. And they've been working on it for quite a while. It isn't something we're going to work on at the last minute. So there are things in the works. And, one of the things that I can tell you, though, is we got a lot of calls in the first F1, and we were like, well, we can't help you, we're not the county, because there were a lot of businesses that did suffer, and I hope that they're working on that for the next one, because we heard from a lot of friends that were in the county and some in the city that did suffer because of the building and the traffic, and we hope that they've remedied all that.
We've made a long-term commitment to working with them, so we've got some time to figure it out. All right, Joshua?
It's no secret Las Vegas has become a sports mecca. We've had everything from the Super Bowl just in February to international soccer, but most of it has been on the Strip, which is in Clark County. Mrs. Seaman, you have 1 minute. How can the city draw in more sporting events?
Well, once again, during the Super Bowl, we were able to make sure we had a lot of PR going, and again, working with our businesses downtown to make sure that we try to attract people who come here. It benefits us all when we have these events that come into Southern Nevada, because we're getting part of the revenue, whether they come to into the city limits or not, but we want to make sure our business benefits. So as mayor, I will continue to do that and really push and see what kind of, meet with our downtown alliance and see what we can do proactively to make sure we're doing everything we can as a city to bring people. We're now doing the Civic Center. We have an art museum coming that's going to attract a lot of people. We're in an ENA right now, and I'm very excited about bringing that here.
Mrs. Berkley, you have 1 minute. How can the city itself draw in more sporting events?
When I was a kid, if you would have told me that ice hockey would have been the hottest ticket in town, I would have told you you were out of your mind. Now, not only is Las Vegas the gaming capital, the entertainment capital, but we're also the sports capital of the world. I would love to be able to build an arena in downtown Las Vegas to attract international soccer. That's very, very big, and it will attract a group of tourists that we don't tap into yet. I am excited about our future, and I'm excited about expanding our sports opportunities. And I agree that it benefits, even though T-Mobile is on the Strip and obviously the Allegiant is in that area. The fact of the matter is we all benefit when the town fills up and people are staying all over, not only the Strip, but in some of our remarkable downtown hotels.
Now, staying to the theme on the City of Las Vegas growth, UNLV projects Southern Nevada's population will top 3 million by 2040. The city's strategic plan includes using technology to deal with all that growth. There are many new options like artificial intelligence. 1 minute to answer for you both, Mrs. Berkley. How would you put new technology to use in city government?
Oh, I think that is so important, and I've been talking about that throughout the campaign. We have a golden opportunity not only to attract the best technology firms in the country, everybody wants to come to Las Vegas, but to be able to use the latest technologies to improve the options that we provide for our fellow citizens. This is going to be an explosive decade. The next 10 years in the city and throughout the Las Vegas Valley, we're going to see amazing things. We're getting the A's. That's a new stadium, more jobs, more tourists. I would say that within the next 5 years, we're going to get an NBA team. Now, we may not build a new stadium, although I'd love it in Las Vegas, but imagine the number of people that will be pouring in for good paying jobs and for tourism. It's huge for us. We need somebody in the mayor's office with a steady hand that can maneuver and work with everybody to ensure that all of Las Vegas is benefiting from this extraordinary technology and growth.
Mrs. Seaman, you have 1 minute. How would you put new technology to use in city government?
Well, I work really closely with our economic development department, and working with our tech center. We are constantly doing these innovative centers and bringing all kinds of businesses here. So I'll work really closely with them to see what will benefit the city with AI intelligence. Work with our tech department. We got a great IT department. So I think it's really important to sit down with them as day one as mayor in all the departments and find out what can we do to streamline business. Is it artificial intelligence? Is it tech? We need to do everything we can to make sure that we're on top of everything as far as technology and AI, because like you said, we're going to grow to 3 million people. That's huge.
John?
So we've discussed this a little bit, the development downtown. Both of you discussed this. There's a lot of focus on the growth of downtown Las Vegas and a lot of homes and developments in the suburbs of the city. But some parts of the city, as you would acknowledge, are struggling to keep up. You're seeing a map on your screen here. This shows the disparity in businesses and office space between wards 1 and 6. You can kind of see it there. It's an example, though, of perhaps the haves and the have-nots in the city. Mrs. Seaman, 1 minute to respond. What policies would you propose as mayor to make sure everyone benefits from this business boom we've been talking about?
So as I've been campaigning for mayor, I've gone out to the different wards, and one of the most important things I think for the city to do and those neighborhoods is to see what they envision for their communities. I mean, I'm not going to just say, oh, I think we need A, B, and C, because what works for Ward 2 isn't necessarily going to work for Ward 1. But that is a very important question, because I feel that some of the wards have been left behind, and we need to know what they envision, once again, as far as businesses, as far as communities. And that will be another thing, having town halls in those neighborhoods to show that the city does care, and we want to know what you envision for your future and your children and your community.
Mrs. Berkley, 1 minute to respond once again. What policies would you propose as mayor to make sure everyone is benefiting from our boom?
Look, there are some areas of the city where they don't want additional growth and development. They like their rural lifestyle, and I don't want to impose anything on them. There are others, and again, I grew up in the city of Las Vegas. I know every ward quite well, but let's take Ward 5. Since I was a kid, they've been talking about economic development in Ward 5. And if you go there, it is the most disadvantaged ward in the entire city. What you do, they're desperate for economic growth, but they want to do it in a way that it benefits the people that live there. They're not enthused about an out-of-state developer coming in, building a project and then taking the proceeds away. They want to be a part of the decision making. They want to develop their area, provide good paying jobs, hire, if it's a Ward 5, if qualified African American developers, contractors to do the job so that the entire community benefits.
Mrs. Berkley, thank you. Denise.
So we started our talk tonight about that $650 million possible settlement for the Badlands lawsuit. Whichever one of you takes office on that very first day, our last question tonight is, what is the first thing you would do in day one in office? Mrs. Seaman, you have 30 seconds here. What's the first thing you want to get done?
Meet with all the departments and find out what we can do better and see where we're at that point. But right now, we are doing that. We are meeting with the city attorney and the city manager, and almost weekly, they are working to try to get a settlement. So on day one, I want to make sure that we are doing everything we can for public safety. Once again, that's the most important thing to me. But I do think that it is important for everyone to know that we are working on that. We are working on a settlement, and we will get there.
So, Mrs. Berkley, with 30 seconds here to respond, you mentioned that you want to get to those 4 votes. What else you would like to do on day one if elected as mayor?
Well, I just want to clarify something. There are no negotiations going on between the city and the developer at this time. And until the city council gets to yes, and we have 4 votes that we can count on, and then you talk with the city attorney, as I mentioned in an earlier question, and then finally you sit down with the developer and what can we do to enhance the opportunity for a settlement. Because if we keep going to court, those numbers are going to keep continuing, and we're going to end up close to bankruptcy and not able to provide the services that people in the city of Las Vegas expect and should have.
All right, we've had a lively discussion here tonight. Let's get to our closing statements. You both have 30 seconds here. Mrs. Seaman, you're first.
Well, I've been at the city now for 5 years. And I was a businesswoman before that. I'm not a good politician, but I'm a great public servant. I like to get out in the community and make sure that I know what I'm talking about, make sure I know what is happening in our city. And I pledge to the voters that I will make sure that we are one of the safest cities in the Union. I will pledge to them that I'm going to make this city better than where I found it. And I come from a city, Los Angeles, and I want to make sure we don't end up like that. So I'm asking for everyone's vote and support. Thank you.
Mrs. Berkley, you have 30 seconds here for your closing statement.
Thank you, Denise. I have dedicated my life to public service. I love public service, and I love this community. I served in the Nevada State Assembly. I've served on the Board of Regents. I know education. I've served as your member of Congress for 7 terms. In addition to that, I was a gaming attorney. I ran a medical school for 9.5 years. I was an in-house counsel for Southwest Gas Corporation. I am ready on day one to take the reins of the city and take us to the next level. And I am asking for your vote and support to work with me so that we can take Las Vegas to the next level.
That is all of our time for tonight. Don't forget, early voting starts Saturday, October 19th. Election day is November 5th. You can drop your ballot in the mail or at a box at any voting location. Same-day registration is available.
And we want to thank both candidates for taking part in this debate. I know you've had many of them throughout the campaign, so we appreciate that. A reminder to you at home, next Thursday, 8 News Now is hosting a live Senate debate with incumbent Senator Jackie Rosen and challenger Sam Brown. That'll be here on October 17th, 7 o'clock, right here live on 8 News Now. We hope you will join us. For Denise Valdez and Joshua Peguero, I'm John Langeler. Thank you for watching.